Would like to introduce our wonderful speaker for today, Robin Gandy, who is a content and growth strategist at Page Cloud, where she plays a key role in the company's growth and success. Her experience at Page Cloud has given her a deep understanding of website building and optimization, including how to create websites that drive results for businesses. Robin specializes in crafting messaging and copy that connects with audiences and leaves lasting impressions. We're super, super excited to have you here today, Robin, so that you can share some practical tips and ideas to help us create a website that supports our founders' goals and attracts more customers. So over to you.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for that introduction. Let me just get my screen shared. Um, can you guys all see this? Yes, amazing. Okay, so yeah, today, well, just a quick background on myself. Thank you again for having me. My name is Robin. I'm a marketing content growth strategist at Page Cloud. If you've never heard of Page Cloud, it is a website builder. We're based out of Ottawa. We're a very small team. We're founded in 2015. I joined the team in about 2020. I've always worked on the like marketing and growth side of things, but since working for a website builder, I've learned so much about designing and building and launching and maintaining websites. So I'm here to share that with you guys today. I've also worked really closely with our customers, and our customers are generally small business founders. So I have, a pretty good understanding of what people need, especially a good understanding of the things that people are missing when they start this process of needing to build a website. So for today's workshop, I'm going to go over kind of three sections. The first is going to be, getting started, what you need to know before you start building a website. I don't know, some of you might be, pre-website building stage. Some of you might have kind of explored it a bit. Some of you might be, already have a website. Hopefully, all these things you can still refer back to help you as you move along in the future. A lot of this stuff that I'm going to go over is going to help you kind of save time and money depending on which avenue you're taking for building your website. So we'll discuss, your website goals, what resources you have, and different ways you can build a website. Then we'll cover, some design and UX principles and content principles, and then a couple things like once you're ready to launch, there may be a little bit more on the technical side, mostly your search engine optimization. So yeah, after each section, we can take some questions. There's going to be a lot of content, but I really want you guys to get the most out of this that you can. So I'd rather answer your questions than really get through everything. At the end, I also have a bit of a demo of the Page Cloud platform. I've built, a kind of a mock website there, so I can show you guys some of these principles in practice. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So what to know before you start building. Again, if you have already started building, still good to know some of these principles so that you can kind of save some time and money as you continue down the road. Okay, so the first thing is going to be clarifying your goals and constraints, which can save you, again, save you that time and money later. You're going to want to identify the goals of your website. It's also so important to know your target audience, understanding your budget and your resources, and then finally choosing the path of which you want to use to create your website. And what I mean by that is like, should you hire a designer, hire a developer? Should you do it yourself, use a no-code tool, use a template? There's a lot of different avenues to take, so we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so what's the goal? This is crucial because knowing the purpose of your website will guide the structure of your site, the design, the content, really everything. This is the main thing you need to know. So ask yourself, what are you building? What kind of website do you need? So types of websites can include obviously e-commerce, portfolio, blog, informational. This will also guide how you search for a template or a tool that you need to use. It also might guide if you want to hire somebody else somebody to do it for you. That can guide that process as well because you want to see what they've built in the past. And then there's the primary objective of the website. So what is the site meant to do? Is it meant to drive sales? Is it meant to just bring awareness? That's kind of the next step of understanding what your site is for. Again, all of these things will drive how you structure the website, what content is on the website, and the avenue that you're going to take to build the website. So that primary objective will then allow you to set a very measurable goal. I don't expect that you'll set a measurable goal before you have a website set up. But it's always important to think about your website as something that you can track and measure. For example, like once you launch your website, you want to, collect 100 leads per week. And by leads, I mean like people's email addresses or whatever. So really setting those measurable goals, because a website is meant to be active. It's meant to participate in your business and not just be like this static thing that you never look at or touch. So the next part of this, who's your audience? Knowing your audience is essential in creating a website that fits their needs. So really take a look at, I'm going to just pop this worksheet in the chat for you guys. We have just a template for filling out your audience demographics. Sorry, let me find my chat. I'm not going to go over it with you guys right now, but feel free to take a look at it on your own time. If you can take a look at it now, that's also fine. And if you have questions, just let me know. So yeah, fill out things like their demographics, their backgrounds, what is their behavior, what things do they like, what do they dislike. All those things are super important in understanding what they expect from your website and your business and your messaging. Pain points. This is massive. You want to understand, the things that they struggle with, the things that they're looking for a solution for. That's going to guide a lot of your website content and your messaging as well. And then researching your competitors is huge. This will help you understand like how they speak about their product, what their users like and dislike. I always look at our competitors' negative reviews, because it's a really easy way to kind of take what people are saying negatively about your competitors and turn that into something positive about your own business. So always look at those things. This will just help guide all the content of your website and your website structure as well. Okay, so get inspired. I often find people skip this step, and it's very, very important. You really want to know the energy, the vibes you're looking for. This will save you a lot of time and money down the line, whether you're working with a designer or doing it yourself. If you're working with a designer, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what kind of website do you want to build? And it's better to come to them with, a vision board or different templates that you like, so that they have a strong understanding of what you're looking for. And obviously, if you're doing it yourself and you're searching through templates and different inspiration, that will help guide that process as well. So again, important to check competitor websites to see what you like, what you dislike. Create vision boards with colors, concepts, images, whatever fits the vision of the business that you're presenting online with your website. And then browse templates and galleries for different like layout inspiration. You might actually just end up finding a template that you like from a website builder, and that's a great place to start as well. Okay, so budget and resources. There's a few things to think about in the before of the building process. The first thing that I would recommend is investing in some time or some money into a brand kit. So this can include like a logo, colors, fonts, just like a kit that you have that you can always bring to a designer and say, hey, this is my brand kit. I need to have this created into a website. Or if you're using a template, you already have your brand kit ready, so you can swap out all the content and the colors and add your logo and stuff. It's always easier to have your brand kit ready before you start the building process. So you can always look back at it and it's like already ready to go. So you can always build your brand kit by yourself. There's so many different tools online to like generate color palettes, generate logos, that kind of, or font combinations as well. It also could be worth it to work with like a branding person who can help you develop that brand kit for your business. Okay, so then design and development costs. This is just something to always keep in mind. It's going to be the most expensive thing. So make sure you have an idea of what your budget is, because websites can range from like, $2,500 to a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, depending on what you're looking for. So make sure you know what your budget is going to be. And then consider your skill level. It's very important to look inward and reflect on what your actual skills are, because the amount of people that I see that say like, well, I know how to use a computer, I can set up a website, it'll be easy. I'm not saying that you can't do that, and there's a lot of tools out there that do make the process really easy, but creating a very high performing, beautiful, accessible, easy to navigate site with really good content and messaging is hard to do. People do these things as full-time jobs. So if you feel like, hey, I don't have a designer eye at all, it might be good to work with a designer or use a really, well laid out template rather than doing it yourself. So really just take a look at what your skills are, so that you can judge, where you can actually help invest in your website and if you need to outsource things as well. Yeah, smaller ongoing costs also always exist. Like your website is not one and done. There's going to be maintenance. You might need to pay for like third-party apps if you're using like different forum features or like chat features. There's a lot of different tools that you can embed inside a website that can still cost money. So that would be like subscription fees. So always just consider there's probably going to be like other costs as well, other than just like design development or like paying for a website builder. And then the last thing here is I would always recommend claiming your domain early. So if you guys are wanting to set up a website, finding a domain is really important. I wouldn't put that off. It's not expensive to get a domain. It can be like $30 a year. I would just kind of get that process handled right away. I recommend from buying a domain from, I want to call it like a neutral domain host. I recommend Hover. They're a Canadian business. I think they're actually based out of Toronto. And what I mean by being kind of neutral is that you can attach that domain to whatever builder you're using. Not all domains are like that. If, for example, you sign up with Squarespace, they have Squarespace domains, but they only connect to Squarespace websites. And suddenly, if you realize you don't want to use Squarespace, then you have to go through the very annoying process of transferring the domain away. That can take like several days and it can cost money and all that jazz. I would use a domain host like Hover, GoDaddy, something that's super neutral, and can connect to any website builder, really. And then as well as a domain, I would recommend investing in a custom email. So that's basically like using your domain as the email address. It just looks so much more professional. You see that on a website, you feel like you're definitely not getting scammed. That's just important stuff that I would invest in early. For example, like Robin at pagecloud.com. It's just so much nicer than Robin from pagecloud at gmail.com. So those are just little things I would invest in. They're not very expensive, and they just make all the difference for your business and for your website. Okay, so custom versus no code. Should you invest in a custom design and development or do it yourself with a template or a no code builder? So I would go custom if you need something really specialized that a website builder can't do. Website builder is a lot more restrictive. So this could be something like giant databases with advanced search functions, or if you need a website that needs like customer accounts and logins, or if you need a website that has like massive estimate calculators, that's the kind of stuff that needs to be custom developed, and you're not really going to get that from a website builder. And you just are going to need to invest the time and the money into that development. The other thing is brand distinction. If your brand is kind of everything to your business and is super unique and super cool, it might be good to invest the time into getting a designer and having something custom developed, because templates and website builders, you're kind of restricted to the layouts that they have, and you can't really get as unique with them. So it might be worth it to invest in a design that reflects that brand. And then, of course, again, if you have the budget and the resources, that's huge as well. It might be good to think about like, can I confidently say that I'm going to get a return on my investment in this website? Does this website bring me a lot of business? Is that the plan? Then yes, I would say it's worth the investment for sure. And then go no code if your website purpose and goals are very simple. So think back to those goals that you're going to set for your website. If the purpose and the goal of the website is basically just like informational, it's a portfolio, it's a blog, that kind of stuff is super easy to DIY, do yourself based off a website builder. If really all you're looking for is for somebody to, fill out a form or get in touch with you. That kind of stuff is quite easy to do on a website builder. So if those are the goals and they're more simple that way, website builder template is the way to go. And if you have limited budget or a tight timeline, definitely a website builder is a lot cheaper, and it's faster to get online as well. You don't have to like wait for development time. And then the last thing is like, yeah, if you're fine with the template's appearance and you don't need to have that massive custom layouts and custom whatever, and you're happy to just kind of use the template and swap out the content, then that's great. It'll take you very little time and you'll be done with it right away. So yeah. Okay, another couple things on custom design and development. Couple pros, obviously, like I kind of touched on this already, creative and technical flexibility. Again, you can have more advanced features, more custom design. That brand development, brand recognition is huge, especially like if you know that your branding is going to be big for your business, working with a designer and a branding person early on can help develop that for the future as well. It might be good to just invest in that for like not even just your website, but your social media and like other content that you're going to create. And the last thing is custom developed websites are great for scalability. If you know that down the road you want to expand with like more advanced features, a dev can go in and build that for you. Whereas they can't really do that with a website builder. If you're on a website builder, you might be just limited to what the website builder has to offer. A developer can't really go in and build something super, super complex. So just keep that in mind as well. But of course, the cons, it can be super expensive. I said $5,000 here, but it's likely like way more. $5,000 would be a very, very small amount. So yeah, depending on the design needs, the technical needs, that price can just go up and up and up and up and up. The biggest one though is that it's just harder to manage. Something that's custom developed, if you don't have a coding background, which I don't, it can be so much harder to manage after it's done. I've seen so many people struggle to manage their custom like WordPress websites after the fact. It's like you just want to change one tiny thing, one piece of text, and they can't do it themselves, which leads me to this next point. You become dependent on that outsourcing. You always have to get in touch with your developer, have them make time for it, pay them for it. It can be annoying. It's an additional cost. And if you're always waiting on somebody to do the work for you, it's harder to stay agile. Like digital marketing and websites are changing all the time. It's so important to like stay on trend. So, if you can't make changes by yourself and you're always relying on somebody else, you might lose out on opportunities. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. So some pros and cons of DIYing and going the no code and like template route. Touched on this already. It's more cost effective, usually only like, $20 to $30 per month, or can be a little bit more than that depending on, the subscription you're using. Saves time for sure. It can save you a lot of time to get online. You're not waiting on that custom development. The other thing is like it's an all-in-one tool. So that means that like most website builders, they provide the hosting and the SSL. Sometimes they give you a domain name. So it's just easier. Everything's all in one place and you don't have to kind of like use a bunch of different tools. Templates, obviously, great place to start. And then easier to expand. Like you can add pages like that. You just like duplicate something, change out the text, change out the images. That's usually how website builders go. So the cons though, which again, I've talked about, it can be restrictive and just like hard to customize and hard to like make it so it's, something that's unique and individual. A lot of websites end up looking similar because they're all using the same like 3 Squarespace templates. That's something that if you're in the industry of website building, I see it all the time. I'm like, well, I know this website is built on Squarespace, or I know this website is built on Wix, because they all have a certain style. And that's not a bad thing for sure. It's just like if you want something really different, you're not really going to get that with a website builder. Obviously, technical restrictions, you're limited to the native functionality of the website builder, and sometimes they don't have the things that you're going to need. And my last thing about website builders is just because it's a no-code tool doesn't always mean it's super easy to use. It can still take a lot of time to learn the tool, use it effectively. It can be time consuming. It can be tricky. So just, go into it with the expectation that it's still a tool that you have to learn how to use. There are other avenues of like hiring out people to work on your website. For example, like with Page Cloud, yes, you can choose a template and do it yourself, but we also have like our Page Cloud pros that you can hire who are really, really good with the tool who can help you design your website. So it's kind of a middle ground between like custom development and DIYing. So it's still all on a really easy to use website builder, but you're still working with a designer who can implement it all on the platform. So you can kind of mix and match with a lot of these avenues. Cool. So that's it for section one. Does anybody have any questions so far? I don't see anything
Yes,
in.
there is a question. Um, Sorry, let me just. Munzugu, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? I know you've sent a direct message to me, but
Yes, absolutely. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
yes.
First and foremost, thank you so very much for your presentation. I am low-key fashionably late, but I digress. Just wanted to ask, in terms of speaking about website development, my key question is, what is your take when it comes to considering an artificial intelligence option for building a website? I know we're talking about no code and DIY, but I'm asking the question because if you are number one cash strapped, if you are a student, if you don't have the bank of 5K sitting in your bank account, so how would that be mediated? Because ultimately, and I'm saying this respectfully, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different AI options that are available for building a website in a matter of minutes versus a matter of months. So I kind of want to get your take on that firsthand.
Um, this is a very hot topic at my job right now,
I
because
can only imagine.
yeah. So yes, I've used a lot of them, and I'm always actually like pretty impressed by what they can output right away. Um, the thing that becomes a problem is when you want to have a website that is high performing in terms of search results, that you're able to, use as a marketing tool. So you're creating landing pages, you're creating blog content. That's how you create a website that like really works for your business. It's really not a one and done. AI generated websites kind of operate as a one and done. The thing that people don't realize, or at least the ones that I've used, is you get generated this website and you're like, okay, that's cool. It looks great. But then it's like, okay, I can publish it and connect it to a custom domain. Cool. But then the issue is like, okay, well, now if I want to change out the content or if I want to add new things, you're still back to square one, right? You still have to learn how to use the tool. For example, like Webflow just announced their AI generated websites and they're great. But then once you get in there, Webflow is still incredibly difficult to use. It's an advanced design tool. And now you're back to square one. You still have to learn it. You still need to make changes to your website all the time. Like that's just a given. And the AI is not going to generate everything that you need. My other opinion on that is just like generally with AI, like, and we all know this, like it just gives you the same stuff over and over again. If you want a website that really speaks to your audience and it has really strong messaging and really strong content, that has to come from you and from that research that you're going to do with your target audience, and with your competitors and with your unique value proposition and all these things that are so important that AI can't really replace. So in terms of like, is it a good starting point? Yes. Do I think that like there's going to be an oversaturated amount of AI generated websites that are basically just the exact same thing recycled over and over again? For sure. I would, you should probably just invest in learning a tool and just more so than that, like just invest in your messaging. If you don't want to go through the hassle of designing anything, that's fine, but at least invest time in the messaging and the content of the website is probably my take on that. I could ramble on about this for like hours.
No worries. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
Thanks, Robin. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation, Robin. I have a quick question. When I first built my website several years ago, we opt for the coding option, the customization option, that programmers build out. And that is because back in those days, what I wanted to build isn't available in a template.
Right.
But with the development of technology, a lot of templates actually have a lot of new functionality. So
Yeah.
last year I actually scrap well, not scrap is still the code is still there, so I can always revert back to it. Um, is that I found it was impossible for me to maintain the customized
Yeah.
websites because it's pure code. I can't even update text myself or fix anything broken myself.
Yeah.
So last year, what we ended up doing is switching to WordPress, and given that it meets our needs. So but then at the same time with WordPress, I realize it's kind of, I guess, bloated down a bit with all the plugins and
Yeah.
things like that. And yeah, so my question is, I guess, twofold. One is like, how do you keep up with all this tech development in the website space? Like what platform or which solution is right for you? And then the second one, maybe you'll talk about it in SEO, is like how do how do you ensure the website loads faster? Because I really minimize like image size and do a lot of those, but I think at the end of the day, it's just way too many plugins. But yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely a common sentiment with WordPress for sure. Plugins become out of date quickly. And WordPress can be, with all the plugins, third parties and whatever, it can become a really code heavy, JavaScript heavy, whatever heavy website that is slower and doesn't perform as well. It's tough because this debate between going with a no code all-in-one tool versus the custom development. And like what I know that WordPress is a website builder, but because there's so much flexibility with it, I still kind of put it in that custom development category. um the thing that's helpful with a website builder and one of those all-in-one tools is that you don't need to worry about that, like, mass amounts of code, right? Like that's like our job to worry about that. It's our job to make sure your website is running fast. Like that's what we can do for you on our end. Like even with Page Cloud, like any image that you upload, we optimize it for you. So we're taking care of all of that. So we're like already your dev team or your technical team, which is something that you don't have with the custom stuff. But again, like if you need something really technically advanced, you're not going to get that on a Page Cloud because our tool is meant for, more. I mean, you can do a lot on Page Cloud. It's really flexible in design, but it's limited in terms of like really advanced technical features. So I'm sorry, I don't really have a full answer. It's kind of hard. You just have to figure out what your goals are for the site, what your priorities are. Management is massive. It's so important to have a website that you can manage. But also I totally understand that like changing platforms it's a whole process in itself that can be time consuming and sometimes expensive. So yeah, I think it's just going back to what your goals are for the website. If you're feeling like you're struggling all the time with dealing with mass amounts of code and you don't know what you're supposed to do with that, like that's what an all-in-one tool will do for you. So that's something to think about as well. Hopefully that answered it a bit.
Awesome. Munzungu, do you have another question or is your hand?
Uh, yeah, it's a new hand. A new one. I just wanted to, in light of what's being discussed, if I'm going too far, please tell me, but I wanted to discuss cybersecurity. The reason why is when it comes to website development, the privacy issues, the cybersecurity issues. I guess I would ask, like, what are recommendations that you could provide when it comes to safeguarding the content, the information, most importantly, just the all elements of a website, because unfortunately we're living in a time where websites, especially apps, especially can be vulnerable to cybersecurity threats.
Yeah, again, I mean, that is definitely not my area of expertise, but what I know just from my like Page Cloud, we take care of all that on our end.
Mhm.
A dedicated person on the team for ensuring everybody's security and privacy. I don't know how that's handled in terms of, if you go the custom development route. I actually don't have an answer for that. So I
Mhm.
would assume that if you're dealing with an all-in-one tool, like that's probably a team that exists for the builder. Like I would assume Square
Okay.
that. I would assume Shopify has that kind of stuff in place. So I don't know the answer in terms of if you're going through custom development, if you're doing hosting through various other platforms. I think that's probably a little bit more risky. I'm sure there's infinite ways to deal with it, but that probably requires another level of outsourcing somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Right. No, I
So yeah,
understand.
it's just kind of an
Absolutely.
added thing. So that's one of another bonuses, and I probably should have added it to this like pros and cons list. Like with a website builder, you're getting basically a whole team that handles this back end stuff for you. Yeah. So again, that's what I can speak of to Page Cloud. I would assume a lot of other website builders have that same stuff, but I don't know exactly how that'd be handled on like a custom development project.
No, no worries. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Anybody else?
No, I think we're all caught up with questions.
Amazing. Okay, so we'll go on to, sorry, one sec. We'll go on to part 2, which is the starting to build the website phase. So a lot of site structure, user experience. We'll touch on a little bit of accessibility as well. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so site structure, some UX principles, user experience, accessibility, and just like a basic sort of content strategy thing for your website as well. So to get started, think back to those goals. Your website structure should support your audience needs and your business objectives. So the first thing is your website should always guide your users to take an action that supports those goals. So is the action signing up for something? Is it filling out a form? Is it purchasing? Make sure the site structure supports that main action. The next is that your site should answer primary questions. So if a user can't find what they're, if you like, I mean, any of us have experienced this. If you land on a website and it's a lot of information and you can't find what you're looking for right away, you're likely to bounce. I think the stat was like if somebody can't find what they're looking for in 5 seconds, they're ready to bounce. And what I mean by bounce, that's why it's called a bounce rate, is somebody lands and then they leave right away. You want your bounce rate to be really, really low. If it's a high bounce rate, that means that a lot of people are landing on your site and leaving right away. So you want to keep that bounce rate really, really low. And the way to do that is to make sure that all those answers are easy to find. Important information is easily accessible. And then the last thing is make users feel safe and seen. When they land on your website, they should know that they're in the right place, and they should, start to build that trust in your business right away. Part of that is obviously, having a domain that's like HTTPS, so it's like a secure domain. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, all these things can help build trust when your user lands on your website. And then creating a structure. So the best way to ensure that you're hitting all your goals is to start mapping out the website. So I would start by mapping out the primary pages and sections. This definitely includes a homepage, contact, about, services, just basically mapping out the important things first. Then the sub pages and sections, what else could your users be looking for? So that could be like testimonials, tutorials, demos, terms and conditions, etc. If you're a visual person like me, it's super fun to like set up a flow chart so that you can see your pages actually mapped out. You can also have a flow chart can help you understand like, okay, if they land on this page, where's the next page they would likely to be go to. So that flow chart should really be a visual understanding of your user's journey on your website. Okay, so some basic UX principles. When it comes to UX, really basic is like, this isn't even basic. This just is what UX is because it should be basic. Simplicity is like really everything, especially if you're taking on your website project by yourself and you don't have a background in UX or design or whatever. Simplicity is really key. So the first thing is avoid too much stimulation. Clear out all the visual noise. You don't need to use too many colors or images or animations. Don't get like too excited by all the little icons that you can drag onto your website. Like really try to keep it clean and free from too much visual noise. Again, like too much stimulation will increase your bounce rates. People will land on your site, get overwhelmed, and leave right away. And then be consistent. Think back to your brand kit. Keep your site to like 2 to 3 main colors, 2 fonts. Keep your logo in always the same place so people can see your logo at all times. Be consistent with image ratios, spacings, stuff like that. And then white space. This is like I think it's like a web design um, uh, lingo. It's basically just spacing, but it's crucial. It can really help kind of tame the feeling of too much information and help you break up your information into chunks. So really use your space like more than you probably think using space is good. And then the last thing is a clear call to action. Make sure your users know exactly what you want them to do when they land on their website. They shouldn't feel like, oh, like I don't know, if it's a website where I'm supposed to buy a product, but there's no button that says like, here's where you go to shop. That's going to be a problem. So just make sure they know exactly what you want them to do on the site. Okay, so some quick tips on navigation. So when I say navigation, I mean literally the menu that's in the top of your website. So have really clear labels like contact services, etc., just so people can easily understand them and like know where they're going when they click on them. And then have a logical structure based on, the appropriate actions of the user journey. Like usually people aren't looking for terms and conditions right away. You don't need to have that in your navigation. The stuff that's going to be important is like, obviously contact is a big one. Products, if that's relevant to your business, services, that kind of stuff is what people are looking for right away. So have that as top level. And then just like some little best practices. When I say a top level menu item, I mean the ones that are like fully visible. Sometimes if you hover on one of those or click, there's a drop down menu. So I would say limit top level nav items to around 5, maybe 6 is okay, but you really don't want too many. That's just going to become too overwhelming. And then make sure if you're using a drop down navigation that it's, first of all, looks good on mobile and is accessible on mobile. I find that that's one of the trickiest things about a mobile design is how they see the menu. I'll show you that when I get to our demo, like some of the options we have. But I do feel like that's something people struggle with a lot is their mobile navigation. So just always be checking that as well. Okay, so some basic things on accessibility. Accessibility is so important. Anybody should be able to land on your website and use it properly. It's wild how many people don't consider accessibility when they create a website. And as much as it can be quite difficult to do really, really right, it's also not hard to at least do the basics. And the basics are, if you're doing it by yourself, not that hard to understand and implement. So also accessibility and good user experience like really go hand in hand. They're the same thing. It's all about spacing and color contrast and ease of navigation. So really like good UX lends itself to good accessibility and vice versa. But just some specifics for accessibility here. Alt text. So alternative text is descriptive text for those who use screen readers. So if you have like an image on your website, you need to add alt text to the image to describe what the image is, so that somebody who can't see knows what the image is that's on the website. Keyboard navigation. Some people can't use a mouse, so they use a keyboard instead. So make sure that the site can be navigated with a keyboard. A lot of this comes down to like proper content hierarchy, which we'll talk about. And then the last one is just high color contrast. Again, this is accessibility, but it's also just good UX. You should be able to always see, if it's text, it needs to be popping out of the screen. It can't be, yellow on white or something like that. So just always make sure you're using a high color contrast. Okay, content hierarchy. Yeah, this was the next one. So content hierarchy. I don't like that word. It's kind of exactly as it sounds. It's just like how you display your information on your website in a way that makes sense to the user and also makes sense to search engines that are scanning your website. So to have proper content hierarchy, you should use headings effectively. So that's not just visually. Like, for example, in this slide you're seeing content hierarchy as a heading and then like a little subheading, and then there's other headings. So that's visual representation. of, headings and subheadings and like body text. But we also use like heading labels. That would be like H1, H2, H3, all the way to H6. And then we have like paragraphs. So basically what you're like with your content hierarchy, you want to always be using the proper labeling based on the importance of what you're showing. So for example, if I was to use H1s, H2s, H2s, whatever, for this slide here, content hierarchy, the title of this slide would get an H1. Your website should always clearly display the important information. This subheading could get an H2. These could get H3s. So it's just kind of the logical order of everything on your website. This is important for like crawlers that are crawling your website to display in search engines. It's how they kind of read your site as well. So make sure you're always using your H1s, but also like visually, it's really important to use clear headings and subheadings and whatever. Like a user should be able to easily skim your website and just see headings and maybe some subheadings and kind of know what's happening. Like none of us go to a website and read every single word on the website. We just take a look at like the basics and we see headings and we're like, okay, yeah, I'm in the right place and I know what I have to do. So yeah, that's really important as well. Yeah, breaking content into chunks, like we talked about this a bit already as well. But content chunking makes it so much easier to manage a lot of information. If you see big blocks of text, that can be overwhelming to a user as well. So try to really break those up. Use headings to show a very important part of that information and then continue with the text. Chunking just makes it more manageable and like more easily absorbed by the user as well. And then just really prioritize the important stuff. The important stuff should be available above the fold, meaning like somebody doesn't have to scroll at all. So if you land on a website, the first thing you see should be like the most important things. So that would probably be like, who the website is, the business name, a logo and whatever, some a heading about like what they do for you, a little bit of subtext, maybe an image, and then a call to action. Like that's the really important stuff that should be readily available right when you land on the website. Okay, so some common mistakes. I'm just gonna quickly go through these. They're kind of random. They're just stuff that I see all the time. So the first one, just talked about this, content doesn't pass the scan test. So if you are looking at your website, have a third party look at your website and be like, can you understand generally the basics of this content by just looking through it in like 10 seconds? They should be able to like scan headings and be like, yeah, I know what's going on. Another thing is links or buttons are too close together in mobile. So just remember that when you are transitioning your site to mobile or designing in mobile, that it's not a clicking, it's a tapping. So if links or buttons are too close together and you're tapping on them, you might click the wrong one accidentally. So make sure that there's a lot of space in between them. The worst thing that you can do on the internet is have a video on your website that is set to autoplay with sound. And somebody lands on your website and they're met with just like sound from a video. Most browsers will actually just block this entirely. Like it's just not allowed. But it's bad practice in general. So just don't do that. Never do that. Okay, then images with too much information for alt text. This is common. And I always say your images should support your content and not be your content. A lot of people will use an image that'll have, really important text and really important maybe statistics, or like if it's an infographic, which I know is helpful, but it's not great for accessibility because then you'd have to add an alt text that is way too long, way too descriptive. Usually your images should just be like complementary to your content, and your alt text is just a little description of what that image is. So just try to make sure that you're not putting something super, super important in an image format. It should all be in like a text format on your website. Okay, form fields are too hard to read or fill out. We're going to talk about forms a little bit later, but it's important to, make sure that your forms are easy to use both on desktop and mobile. Make sure that they're easy to fill out if you're using tap on mobile as well. So just be aware of that. Navigation is too busy. Again, like I said, 5, maybe 6 at the top level. If it becomes too busy, it's going to be too overwhelming. Use your footer, use other places on your website to link other pages. Generally, just too much visual fluff. People get excited when they see animations and they want to use it on their website. Animations can ruin your site really quickly. So just steer away from them, use them very sparingly. And then make sure your text is big enough, especially on mobile. And the last thing is just use a clear CTA at all times and reinforce it at multiple times on your page as well. Okay, so it's always so important to test all of these things. So in this design phase, you know, when you're working with your site structure and starting to map out that content, create a prototype or wireframe. You can do this in like, you know, there's Figma and Sketch. I always use Page Cloud, even though it's not really meant for that, but you can use Page Cloud for that. Test the prototype, give it to third parties, get feedback, and refine based on that feedback. It's always important. Do we have questions?
Yes, there are a couple of questions in the chat. Let me just scroll over here. Can you recommend a flowchart app to help plan out your website? So,
Oh yeah. Well, so I've used Figma actually for it. There's also Miro, is a good one. Miro's kind of like a visual. It's not necessarily for creating a flowchart, but it's very visual. It's easy to build stuff like that. There was also like it was InDesign. I think it was InDesign that I've also used. Yeah, and then Sketch as well. Yeah, is a good one.
awesome. Thank you for that. Munzungo, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask, in terms of the mapping out process, I did want to ask, how is it best to balance complexity with simplicity? So depending on the kind of website that you're looking to build, are there like any tips you can recommend to balance simplicity and complexity? So let me give like a quick example. If you look at, say, Amazon's website, it's very busy. So much going on. There's ads every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want that. But like again, I understand why Amazon has crafted over their website that way because they want sales. So I get it. But I think for like, you know, in a more current context, do you want a website that is too busy? Do you want a website that's kind of more simplistic? How do you kind of balance the complexity and simplicity to kind of really maximize the impact you can make,
Yeah,
considering the competitors in the landscape?
yeah, I hear you for sure. I would say that always start with the simple stuff, and
Yes.
then like proof of concept it a little bit because you can always
Mm.
test things and track. You know, Amazon's able to do that because everybody in the whole world uses Amazon. So they don't really care, right? Like they can just be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Same thing. I mean, Apple has like a beautiful website. It's really cool, but it's actually like pretty poorly put together, but it doesn't matter. They can just do that because everybody's going to go visit Apple. It doesn't matter. So once you've reached that point in your business, hopefully you get there and you're, you know, this giant making trillions of dollars. It doesn't really matter what you do on your website. People are going to use it anyways. And I mean, all of us can probably say like Amazon's website sucks. Unanimously, we agree, but there's nothing we can do about it. So I think it's kind of like starting with the simple stuff, seeing what works. If that's working really well, add in the next level. If that continues to work well, add in the next level. All of those things is really gradual. I would never really start out by throwing a bunch of complexities in somebody's face, especially when like they don't even have that like, you know, trust in your business. Because if I went to Amazon and I had no idea what Amazon was, I'd be like, I'm about to get scammed. Like that's how I feel about Amazon. So yeah, I think always start with the simplicity and then work your way up.
Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. There's another question in the chat. Is connecting subpages to main pages essential or relevant and vice versa?
So there's a couple different ways to answer this for sure. You always, if you have a website page, it needs to be linked somewhere. or else it's going to be referred to. There's a term for it in like SEO. I want to say it's called like a ghost page or something like that. If it's not linked to from anywhere, it's way less likely to show up in like search results. Um, that is not relevant to like, just one domain. Like if you just have like pagecloud.com and it's just that one page, that doesn't link to any of it. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's like if I have pagecloud.com/features and features isn't linked from the homepage, it's not going to be ranked well. So there is kind of this like ecosystem. So that's like really technically, and SEO will ding you for that. Like search engines will ding you for that. But also just like creating this ecosystem on your website. That's like, okay, so they go from this page to this page. Once they're on this page, oh, here's a couple other pages recommended. And it kind of goes in a circle. That internal link building, super powerful for like generating, people like, what's the term I'm looking for? Like, it's an analytics term, like when they stay on your website for longer, like the time spent and the pages viewed, that's kind of like its own art in itself, is creating this ecosystem of a website where people visit multiple pages and kind of like finish that loop. So I would say linking is great. Always be linking to other pages and back to other pages. Like all that stuff is really important. And from a technical perspective, yes, you should be always linking things.
Awesome, thank you. Abdul Razak wants to know, what do you recommend for analytics?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you kind of can't escape Google Analytics. Everybody should have Google Analytics set up. Um, I use we at PageCloud we use Mixpanel, which is great, but I don't know if it's great. It's just something that I'm used to, so I think it's good. Mixpanel is pretty in depth. You can create really great dashboards, and you can track, user demographics and create like funnels. By a funnel, I mean like understanding like when a user lands on a page and then visits a different page and where they drop off. Because once you land on a page, you get like basically tagged, and then we follow you around the website. So that's what Mixpanel is great at. Google Analytics also has like there's like Google Tag Manager, and that's for tracking like very specific events. I'm kind of lucky at PageCloud because we have native analytics. So if you are using a PageCloud website, analytics is baked into it. So like any link clicks will show up, visitors to a page, those visitors' demographics. So like we have that baked into the website builder. So I use our own analytics a lot, which is great. But definitely like it kind of sucks, but like Google Analytics, just everybody should at least slightly try to learn it. If not just for the terminology, because it's pretty universally used anyways. So yeah. I'll talk a little bit about analytics in the next part. Yeah.
Perfect. Munzungo, go ahead.
Yeah, so just one more question. When it comes to website development, and then also having an app, could you share on like how to make sure there's a seamless transition between the ways in which a website is going to look like in comparison to an app?
I mean, I don't think that I'm the person to answer that question. Um, that would be its own ball game. There's probably so much UX that goes into that.
Hmm.
And it's not really my area of expertise, unfortunately. In terms of like just transitioning to like a mobile version of the website, there's a lot of principles in place for that. That are just general things like you need to ensure the design is a lot easier to navigate. I would slim down a website based on,
Hmm.
but in terms of like an app, I'm sure that's like a whole other ball game. So I don't think I'm the person to answer that, unfortunately. But yeah, like mobile building is a whole other world for sure.
Good times. And just one more question too, before I forget. Language. So if you want to add an additional language to the website, what would you recommend that a person can do?
Yeah, there's a ton of different avenues. It can be as simple as just recreating the page and renaming it. Like URL structure is huge there. So like, for example,
Hmm.
pagecloud.com/home would be then pagecloud.com/home dash en versus dash fr if it was French.
Yes.
So URL structure is massive. You can also do a full subdomain. Like you could do we could potentially have like, if it's French again, like fr.pagecloud.com. So that's like all its own website on a subdomain. The jury's kind of out on what's like technically better. What's really important is just that the content itself is thought out well, because a lot of people just like put things into Google Translate and it's just like not, that's what's going to ding you in
Yeah,
terms.
yeah, we're not doing that. No.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's the subdomain route, there's just like the URL structure route. Uh, yeah, yeah. I don't with Page Cloud, like we unfortunately don't have like an amazing system for doing that. Like we have a full guide on how to do it, but it's unfortunately a lot of it's just like, well, you got to just kind of recreate the site again and then
Okay.
sure the way. Yeah. So
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
no problem.
Thanks, Robin. We're all caught up with questions.
It looks like there maybe might be one more from Lisa.
I think she's just suggesting something to Nzongo rather than a question. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, just really quickly on that front, I didn't touch a lot in this just because this is a whole other ballgame of web design, and I wanted to do basics, but you guys seem to know a lot, which is great. The like desktop versus mobile, and having your website work well on a tablet as well. All of that is responsive design is what that is. And a lot of website builders now are fully responsive. Page Cloud, you can build fully responsive websites as well. Basically what that means is that like with the size of your site, if you take the browser window and you just shrink it down, all your content's going to reflow perfectly into a perfect other website that's smaller for mobile or for a tablet or whatever. So a lot of website builders, the templates nowadays, yes, they're fully responsive, so you don't really need to worry about any of that. Do they always work properly? No. Do you need to kind of make adjustments here and there? Yes, for sure. But yeah, it is usually baked in, that responsiveness. It's kind of expected nowadays anyways, so yeah. Okay, really quickly on crafting content, there's just a couple slides here. I'm not gonna, go into all content things, but just a couple important things for you guys to know. So, why should people pick you? Like, this is so important to have really clearly laid out on your website. So, crafting your UVP, your unique value proposition. It's a concise statement of what sets you apart from your competition. This is likely what you're going to use in your website's hero, like you're basically that first section that people land on when they get to your site. And a lot of that UVP is going to be based on, knowing your target audience and your competitors. So just make sure that you spend some time crafting that. I do have another little template for you guys to build your own UVP. And again, like this kind of stuff will support not only your website content, but like any content you do for your business, social media, whatever it is. So it's really important to take some time and develop these things as well. So the other thing is using customer focused language. So your website needs to be, that balance between sales driven text and then regular human language that connects with your target audience. So make sure you strike that balance. And then of course, focus on value, not features. So like if you're selling a drill, you're not selling the drill's power and speed. Like what you're actually selling is like really well built cabinets and really like good craftsmanship. That's not a good example because I don't know anything about drills, but you see what I mean. Like you're always selling that value. Obviously, it's great to have, a features page where people can really dig into that feature, but that's kind of saved for a specific page and isn't like the first thing they see on your website. Okay, so building trust. Building trust is so important. So the first thing is like show your story and your values, state your mission, be as transparent as possible. And then again, using authentic language. So that's the language that your audience actually speaks, like avoid overly technical jargon. And then offer support and communication. Make sure you include a form on your website so that people can get in touch with you. I'll talk a little bit about forms in a bit. And then humanize your brand. This is so important, especially in the age of AI and like people being so concerned about getting scammed. Show your face, show the team, show that you could be trusted, show that authenticity. Like that's so important. Again, probably the most important is testimonials. Reviews don't need to just be like, a quote or a 5-star. They can be, your blog that showcases your customers or like video highlights or whatever it is. But it's always so good to have that social proof. And then crafting a compelling CTA. So your CTA is your call to action. I've said this several times now. Your CTA should be one of the first things somebody sees when they land on your website and reinforced on multiple places on your website. So just be clear, be direct, be action-oriented, get started, sign up now. You've seen those a million times. They work for a reason. You can get creative, but still just like be direct. Always highlight the value. If you have like a free resource, it could be like download for free, like make sure people know. With Page Cloud, we use things like create your website, like, 5-minute website, like just like stuff like that, that people know that they're getting value right away. And then make it stand out, use contrasting colors, put it in a large button, draw the eye. Don't just use like text with a link, make it a button, make it something people can see for sure. And then think about placement. Think about where your eye naturally goes on a website, or maybe where we're just like trained to look, but like usually like the top right corner, there's usually a button, a CTA there, and just reinforce it like down the page. Like don't just have one. Make sure you have like one at the top, one midway down, one at the very bottom. It's always important to have it multiple times. Okay, cool. So now we'll get into kind of some more technical things. I'm not like an SEO specialist or a technical person. These are just the basic things that I've learned that anybody can really grasp onto easily, and it just makes all the difference with your website. So yeah, getting ready to launch. We'll talk a little bit about SEO, some mobile optimization, lead capture, and then tracking and optimizing. So search engine optimization. The actual definition, I guess, is the practice of improving your website's visibility in search engine results, aiming to increase organic, as in not paid, traffic. More simply put, it's just like what you have to do to make sure Google stays happy. And what you have to do so that more users find your website when they search things into Google. And I say Google, there are other search engines, obviously, but the one we all use, or at least I use, and is the most important for my job, is Google. So there's a few different avenues for SEO. So the most important and the most basic is on-page optimization. So this is going to be like page titles, descriptions, proper heading hierarchy, like we talked about. Other things could be your overall usability, that navigation, all that stuff that you did in your site structure. That's actually super important for your SEO. And then high quality content. So that's like blog posts, guides, white papers, case studies, things that really help people find answers to what they need. That's always going to be ranked well in Google. And then we have keyword research. This is kind of the practice of identifying keywords and targeting those, like using those keywords on your website in your website content. So when people search them, they find your website. And then the technical SEO is going to be like, ensuring you have fast load times, images are optimized, your mobile site is optimized and it's like, working well. And then of course, making sure your site is secure. So that like HTTPS. None of us I would hope these days, go to a website that says this is not secure and then like continue on. No, we leave right away. A good thing about like using a website builder again is like with Page Cloud, like we provide that security, like we provide the SSL is what it's called. So like we take care of that on our end. And then the last kind of principle is link building, which is getting inbound links. So that means that other people are posting about your website or like including your website link as a resource on their website. That kind of just like builds domain authority. It means that people are talking about you, using your website, trusting in you. Those inbound links are super, super crucial. Again, like all of these things, all of this could be its own 2.5-hour workshop on its own. I'm just really breezing through them quickly. So the must-haves really are just the mobile-friendly design. Your site is going to be viewed on a phone, so you just need to make sure it's usable. and then titles and description for each page. This is what actually shows up in search results when you Google a website. So if you Google Page Cloud, you'll see like a title and a description in Google. So you have to make sure that's filled out on every page and make sure it's different on every page as well. Like I see a lot of people who use the exact same meta description for every single page. And that's just, it's going to work against you in the long run. Just be specific to what the page is about. And then content hierarchy, we already talked about that. Just make sure you have a logical content structure. And then again, just make sure fast and secure, you have HTTPS for your website URL. And then a couple best practices for like SEO-friendly content. Like at the end of the day, I don't think it's wise to be overly obsessed with SEO as long as you have the basics down. Always make sure your content is written for humans, not for search engines. I see that mistake all the time. It's like people are writing something that's so optimized for Google that it actually ends up working against them because people don't find it helpful. So you're writing for humans. In the long run, like this is going to be better for your SEO. So again, like if keywords don't fit into that, don't force it, like you don't need to always be adding keywords into your site. Just write for the people that you're actually trying to target. And if keywords work in it naturally, then great. And then long form content, blog posts, guides, white papers, that's all stuff that you should be creating on your website. And they usually rank really well. And then just make sure you're optimizing your images and your media so it doesn't slow down your website. Again, like I said earlier, Page Cloud and other website builders as well probably would do that for you. Okay, so lead capture. Lead capture is just how you, collect information from your users, like usually just through a form so that you can follow up with them and you turn those leads hopefully into customers. So you'll likely do this with a form. So just make sure that you keep it simple. Forms that are too long and complex, they won't get completed. Like people have a very short attention span. If I had to spend more than, 20 seconds filling out a form, I'm out of here. So just keep them super simple. Again, use a strong CTA. We've already talked about that. Always good to have a call to action on your form. Like, if it's to get in touch with you, it's like contact me, or if it's to get access to a free resource, it's like get access now, like something like that. Show the value. We talked about this. Make sure your form is mobile friendly. So again, that's making sure it's easy to tap on the fields in order to fill it out. It's easy to click that submit button, stuff like that. And then build trust. So like this is how you assure that you're keeping your customers' data safe. If you're using something like Page Cloud, we handle that for you. We have reCAPTCHA, so you're not getting spammed. But we also make sure that like all your customer data is safe. So just make sure you're reinforcing that for your customers, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable filling stuff out and giving people their email addresses without that assurance as well. So yeah. And then after you launch, a lot of this stuff can be after launch as well, but I think this is kind of the route that you take with your website. You're constantly creating. Your website is never done. Search engines actually prioritize websites that like stay up to date and have new content all the time. So make sure it's like always something that's in motion. And then always be like testing and tracking. Try new headlines, try new CTAs, try new messaging. If you want to be pushing a new product, like make sure you're putting that in the view of your customers. And just, if that product, you put that in view and suddenly you realize no one is converting or, people aren't clicking on it, probably time to rethink that product. Like, it's always good to try new things and test and track so that you can learn and keep growing. And then keep optimizing. Like, you're gathering feedback all the time. It's always good to have third parties look at your website constantly. It's also really good to learn about your analytics, learn what they mean. I don't pretend to be an expert in data, but I think when it comes to analytics, if you're not constantly testing new things, your analytics isn't going to make sense to you. So it's really important to try, like putting out a new piece of content and tracking how that piece of content is getting clicks or is getting people are scrolling through it, or just like all these things that you can track in analytics. If you're not putting out anything new and you're just staring at like stagnant analytics, you're not really going to learn anything. So I think that it's always good to just be like putting out new stuff all the time, making those changes and seeing how it affects your analytics. That's how I've learned how to use analytics to my benefit. So that's my biggest recommendation there. Um, doo, 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 doo. Yeah, so a little bit more just on tracking and optimizing. It's always good to keep monitoring what's going on and just like make iterative improvements. So monitor your performance. Always check that your site is up and running and good. Again, if you're working with a website builder, you shouldn't have a problem. But if there's other things like if you purchased a domain and your domain didn't renew properly, suddenly your site's down, that kind of thing that you should always be testing and just like monitoring it, gathering feedback. Always encourage your users to, maybe leave a review or like ask them how they experienced the site, like gather all that feedback. Again, use analytics tools, Google Analytics and whatever other platforms you have to track like traffic and user behavior and your conversion funnels, all that jazz. And then A/B testing again, like you can test different versions of, headlines or CTAs and see what works better. And then yeah, review and refine your content and SEO. It's always good to make sure things are staying up to date. If you're like fix broken links or redirect links that are no longer relevant. Yeah, so again, like I cannot stress this enough, like a website is never finished. You always kind of have to be on top of that. So yeah. Okay, so that's all I have for this presentation. Is there any questions at this moment?
Robin, how can I work with you directly?
Well, so I'll talk to you guys a little bit about PageCloud's perk offering that we have with YSpace. So if you wanted to use PageCloud for your website, we offer actually 50% off for you guys on your first subscription payment. And then for attendees of this workshop, I'm offering 30-minute one-on-one demos with myself. So I'll make sure that you guys get access to my email. And if you're interested, you can just shoot me an email and we can book a one-on-one and talk about if you can use PageCloud for your website. Yeah.
That's awesome, Robin. Thank you so much for offering that. So a couple of questions are coming in the chat. How often, sorry, I'm just trying to keep an eye out on my chat. How often should you test your links to make sure they aren't broken?
Hopefully you wouldn't have to test them all the time because likely you hopefully will have like an analytics tool that you're using that can kind of do these checks for you. Broken links, there's so many tools out there that can help you. Like there's probably like broken link Chrome extensions, stuff like that you can just run them on your website and it'll scan for any broken links. So just do that regularly. You don't need to go in and test them all the time. With PageCloud, like with our built-in analytics that like, if you use a PageCloud website, you get access to all the analytics. There's like a broken link thing at the bottom that'll alert you if there are any. So yeah, ideally you're not checking all the time, but you're just using a tool that can scan for it.
Perfect. Any other questions? There you go. Monzogo, go ahead.
Yes, I'm back. So just want to know, again, if this has been covered before, forgive me, but when it comes to testing it like a website from the accessibility perspective,
Yeah.
would there be any tools that you would recommend just to make sure that when it comes to a person who has different accessibility needs, that it will be tested in a way that it covers at least the most general parts of different needs that could be assessed?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of tools out there. I can't think of the ones that we use off the top of my head. Um, I don't know why the name is escaping me, but there's a bunch of them. Make sure you're using one that's specific to the guidelines recommended in like your location because
Yes.
like the States is different than us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff about accessibility, like just through even like the Ontario government website as well.
Yep.
The best thing that you can do though, at least in my experience, is, well, I mean, I guess I work in this industry and I've worked alongside people who work in accessibility, so I've just had
Hmm.
somebody check it and be like, like this works and this doesn't. Because even using the tools sometimes, like you don't really get a feel for like the real life using of the website.
Right.
Um, I've worked with somebody in the past who works for the government of Canada, and he works in accessibility for, I think he works in accessibility for the like uh something about like national defense. I don't know, something about that website. And obviously, he's such a great resource because I was just like, can you just check all this stuff for me? And he was like, yeah, that works, that
Yes.
doesn't. Anyway, so that's like the best avenue I've found because I find
Yeah.
sometimes these like accessibility checker tools, they're throwing so much information at you, and it can be
Yes.
pretty overwhelming if you're trying to deal with it yourself. Because there
Hmm.
is kind of like a basic level that you should pass, and then there's the like extreme amazing level that you can pass, which obviously we should all strive to be there, but that can be,
Hmm.
time consuming. It can be expensive, especially if you're doing it yourself. So just keep
Okay.
that in mind as well. Yeah.
No, that helps a lot. And I think the final question that I would have, when it comes to how to say this? When it comes to being able to cater to different demographics, like I guess the question I would have is, what makes the ideal website? I mean, I know this might be very general, but what makes like the ideal website for a customer or a new customer in your experience?
I mean, I think a lot of that goes back to just building that trust and that relationship.
Mhm.
Um, it's hard. I think in this day and age, you're not going to get a customer instantly if they like first land on your website. They've never heard of you before. They land on your website. Are they going to become a customer in that second? Probably
Mhm.
not.
Of course.
So I think what's important there is to understand that like your customer's relationship with your business and your website is probably a longer journey than you might expect. So making sure that you kind of have all the content that they need to like support that journey. So like for example, with Page Cloud, a lot of our, well, all of our users are like business owners, entrepreneurs. So I cater a lot of our content to support the stuff that they need before they need a website builder. And then once they realize they need a website builder, they already know us, they know our content, they know they can trust us. So that's how like, you use your website and your content to support your customer. And all of that needs to come from like a really authentic place and like a place of really understanding your audience. Um, so I think like to answer your question, like there's no perfect website in terms of like right away it's gonna like captivate somebody and they're like instantly they're sold. I think that's kind of a thing of the past. So just make sure you're working on building that trust all the time. Creating content that supports your customers is so important. Yeah.
No, sounds good. And final, something just came to me, forgive me. But one more thing. What do you think about using chatbots on a website? And I say that because in terms of like what's happening now in the more modern context of building websites, the chatbot pretty much functions as an intermediary tool to support the customer journey, but having a human touch to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not against it for sure. It depends on what you're using it for. Like sometimes if it's just like general, like, hey, like, well, how can we help you? That's totally fine. I think like, at least in my experience, like if somebody's actually wanting to reach out to you, they don't mind waiting for a human answer.
Hmm.
It's like the next day or a couple days. Like if somebody's actually super interested in what you have to offer, they're okay to wait that time. So even if it's a chatbot that's just like put your questions here and like somebody real, an actual human will get back to you. I think that's a good avenue to go, but I'm not against chatbots at all. Like I think, they can be really helpful in the right circumstance. But again, yeah, like I mean, I always believe that like adding that human touch is super important as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Problem.
Awesome. Lisa wants to know how often to put out new content is considered good.
That just really depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, it's also, what you can support yourself if you are the solo person running the show. I think that like a good target is maybe to like if I mean again, there's so many ways to put out content. So it's depends on what you're trying to do. My cadence is like I like to put out maybe a couple new, really in-depth, thought out blog posts, like, at least one a week. If I don't get to that, I mean, we're a small team at Page Cloud, so some people they put out blog posts like one a day. But I just really like to focus on content that I know is like really, really helpful. I don't like to just put stuff out just to like put it out there. I always want to make sure it's like a really helpful, useful thing. It also depends on like, if it's like Black Friday and you're putting out a sale for Black Friday and you need a new landing page and you need, maybe a blog post to support that, or maybe you need social posts to support that. That's all stuff that like is seasonal, should be like on your calendar so that you're preparing for it. So I don't really have like a good answer in terms of like search engines, like being on top of it. That's not like super relevant. Like just make sure that your website is being kind of like updated maybe once every couple months. And make sure you're checking those links once every month or whatever. It's kind of just like letting search engines know like, hey, we're still here. It doesn't have to be like a whole new thing all the time.
Cool, thank you. Richmond wants to know what are your thoughts on putting video content, example YouTube link on your website?
Yeah, video content performs super well. It's actually really good for SEO as well. But it's, I mean, it just depends on how you use it. Again, like I think that if it's a video, but it's just like text coming across the screen, we don't need that, right? Like it's like make videos that are actually useful for the user. It's a great way to, I mean, like on Page Cloud, for example, you can just, embed the YouTube link and the videos up on your site. And it's great to have a YouTube channel that has inbound links to your website as well. So you can kind of use that as like a different way to like support your content on multiple channels. Like I think video is great. I would love to do it more at my job, but there's a lot going on. So, but yeah, I do think video content is awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for Robin?
Yes, a question, please.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So we are developing a product. We don't yet have a final product per se, kind of a prototype. Do I still need to make a website just explaining to my potential users the thought process and the end goal and the journey?
Yeah, I think that would be a great place to start. A lot of businesses who are kind of like pre-launch like to just give like, a little preview of what they're looking for. It's a great way to just become a part of the conversation even before you've launched. Having a website, having somewhere where people can go is a great way to build like hype around your product. Also, you could use like a form on the website that says, do you want to be notified when this officially launches? And you can collect people's email addresses and follow up with them when you have launched. So I think it's always good to be establishing your web presence even before you have gone live with things, because it kind of just like builds that, hype for your product. It's easier to share a website link on socials as well, like that already create some like inbound links to your site. Like it's just a good thing to do. Yeah.
Also, how do we contact you if we have any concern or question? Or do we just, is there an email we can reach you?
Yeah, Alina's gonna provide it for you guys. Yeah.
And this presentation, will that be emailed to us or that's,
Yeah, so we're going to share a recording and the presentation to you by Thursday. It just takes us a day to put the video together.
thank you.
Awesome. Liz, go for it.
Hi. So I don't know if you can answer this question because it has to do with a different company than what you work for, but I built a website. It was basically a portfolio type website on using WordPress in SiteGround, and I did it back in 2018, and like it looked slick. It was great. It worked well for a long time. And then I did what you said you shouldn't do it. I left it static. I wasn't doing anything with it really. And so then I went back into it just like last month and I was like, okay, my business needs have changed. They're evolving. I'm going to redevelop this website and make it into something new. And suddenly SiteGround was completely unusable. And I don't know if it was SiteGround or WordPress has changed a lot or what it is, but like I just wasn't getting it, and now my website looks terrible. And I was wondering if you knew, like, has SiteGround just kind of fallen off as a tool to use, or like what's happened in the
So
past 5 years? So I haven't know.
what I can tell you is that in my 5 years of working in this industry, I have never heard of that platform.
Oh,
So
okay.
that a little bit answers your question. That is like, it happens all the time. Tools pop up and then they disappear. Like it happens a lot. And that's why it's so stressful to rely on a tool for your entire business. So I totally understand. Like I feel like I have empathy for that. I've seen it happen with other companies in the past. So yeah, sucks, definitely, is the first thing I can tell you. In terms of like a way forward, I think it's if your goals and your needs of your website have really changed, like maybe it really just is time to kind of like reassess, find a different builder, and just go from there. Unfortunately, it does suck for sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Awesome. Love all the questions coming in. So, Ting has a question. What's your advice on intellectual property protection when working with website builder company or outsourced tech team?
That's an interesting question. It's not actually something I know a lot about because we just have terms and conditions in terms of like for using Page Cloud. It'd probably be something that you would need to, if you're working with like a developer or whatever, that's probably something that you can work out in your contract. We have terms like for Page Cloud specifically. I'm trying to think of actually how that works. Like we
So
don't.
you wouldn't own the IP of it though. It would be the founder or the company that is paying you to
I
build it.
want to say no, but I apologize. Like this is just not my department of Page Cloud at all. What I do know is that like we don't own any of the. Yeah, no, I don't think we would because we definitely like don't own any of the content. Um, Yeah, I don't know how it works exactly with like IPs and stuff. Again, that is not my department. But we definitely have terms and conditions that are available on the website that you can look at. And I'm sure every other website builder would have that as well. And I would assume it's just something that you would kind of like sort out in a contract if you're going the custom route. So yeah.
Got it. So, Ting, maybe I can reach out to some of our IP people and find that out for you. Okay, moving on. Lisa wants to know what's the best practice for using stock images? Do you credit the source somewhere, and how not to use overused images?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, you don't with like some stock images, it's always nice to credit the source, but you don't necessarily have to. There are some different, whatever website you're using. If you're paying for a premium account, then you don't have to credit. If you're not, then you do. It depends on what their terms and conditions are. I know there's even like some websites that have like, you can download icons or animations, and it says like big disclaimer. It's like, please credit the person if you're using it on their website. This is if you like downloaded it for free. Like if you paid for it, you don't need to, for the most part. If you downloaded it for free, you should always be crediting. That's just my opinion. You don't necessarily have to, like no one's stopping you. But again, like it is nice to always give credit where credit's due. In terms of actually like using stock images and making sure you're not overusing them, I don't have a good answer for you. Like when you work in this industry, or at least the industry I work in, you see the same stock images over and over and over and over and over again. It's actually insane. So I don't have a great answer there. I have tried to just kind of avoid using stock images altogether because I'm like, what is the point? Like we all have seen this image a million times. So if you can, and I know this is just an added expense, like try to get your own images. I think that makes such a big difference to your brand and to like the authenticity of your business. It's having your own images. Please do not use your iPhone. Get an actual camera, use something good, because honestly, like the stock image world, yeah, like you will see the same ones over and over again. And that's just something that's inescapable. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for that. Prasant wants to know, can I build a website for an in-person business, mostly for marketing?
Yeah, of course. I think it's super important for in-person businesses to have websites, especially since like your Google business account is so important. Like if somebody Googles, uh, I can't think of even one business off the top of my head right now. Kettleman's Bagels. I don't know if you guys have ever had Kettleman's. They're very popular in Ottawa. If you Google Kettleman's Bagels, I don't think I've ever really used their website for anything other than like, are you open right now? Or like, what's the holiday hours? But all that stuff's so important for people to have access to. And that'll be linked to their Google business account. Um, and just for like building that credibility again, like having a website available to somebody when they search you on Google, like is just part of building that trust and that like customer relationship. So I definitely recommend that. Even if you're not using it to like sell or you're not using it to like collect leads or whatever, it's just there to say, hey, we exist. Like that's still definitely important for sure.
Got it. Okay, so next question is about templates. So they're saying a lot of things you mentioned about page hierarchy, white space is dependent on the template one chooses. So, and for context, they're using a template from Bootstrap Made.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So a template, if the template is designed correctly, should have all these things already in place. So that's definitely important to know. If you're using a template and it doesn't have, proper heading hierarchy and it doesn't use appropriate UX principles, that's kind of a red flag. Templates are created by designers and by UX. Well, hopefully they're created by designers and UX people. So yeah, if you're using a template, you likely don't need to worry about that. It depends. What will start to happen is if your template is more customizable and you're adding text in new spaces, then you might need to manually go in and add that H1 or add that H2 or add that alt text to an image. That kind of thing is when you start to like change out the content more and more and more. But hopefully, if you're using a template, all that stuff is kind of in place for you already.
Got it.
Yeah, I guess, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I guess what I was trying to say is, it seems like a lot of the stuff you talked about, you should look at and consider before choosing the template is, I guess, my point in that, because I chose one and it was really important for me that it be, what's it called? When it scales to a mobile device and stuff. What's that called?
Responsive, yeah.
Yeah, that it's a responsive design, because I didn't want to be messing with that and I just needed it. So I guess a lot of the stuff I saw, it's like it would be really helpful to look at all those criteria and things you discussed
Yeah,
while selecting a template, right?
definitely.
Because so much is dependent on that.
Yeah, and there are so many templates available on the internet, like just like hundreds of thousands. So again, like it's really important to understand your goals, understand your audience needs, your expectations before choosing a template. All that stuff is so important. Like sometimes people just kind of choose a template because they're like, hey, I like this color palette, or hey, I like this layout. It's cool. But then they don't realize that that's actually not what you need for the business that you're running. So yeah, really important to kind of like understand your needs before you go template hunting, for sure.
Right. Well, thanks for the talk. It was great.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right. I think we're all caught up with questions.
Great. Yeah, I just have for this last little portion, I just wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit of these things in practice and also just show you the Page Cloud platform. You can see this, right? Yes. Okay, so this is the Page Cloud website builder. So everything is super visual. It's really just a click to edit. Oh, I'm hiding my edit menu right now. Everything's just really a click to edit. So if I click this, I can see I have the text selected. If I click in here, I have the button selected and I can edit things. This is, well, it's kind of a template for me because our designer designed it and I just kind of customized it to what I needed. So just a couple of things that we've talked about. For example, having a logo in a spot that's always well presented. Yeah, that's just like kind of an obvious one. We always have the Page Cloud logo in the top left. Keeping the menu links to just 4 and then a CTA right in the corner. So this page is actually like a mock version of what tonight is, this workshop. So we have like a sign up button in the top left corner. When you first would land on this page, you'd see that there's a button to reserve your spot. In terms of heading hierarchies, like this essentials in building a website would be H1, this founder fundamentals would be probably H2. We'd have an H3 down here. As we scroll down the page, we're answering those questions that people would have right away. So we see date and time right there, duration, 2 hours, location, via Zoom. All those questions that people have right away, like frequently asked questions, it's so important to show those right away so there's no looking for them. And as we continue down, we have a little bit more of like, what it's about, why you should come. And then on this side, we're again reinforcing that CTA. So people have scrolled down, they're no longer in view of the main heading and hero, but as they scroll down, they still have access to everything else. So they can still reserve their spot. They can see all these things on social media. They have access to like, who the hosts are, York University and Page Cloud. You continue to scroll down a little bit more on the content side. And you can see as well, like, as we're scrolling through this page, it's, there's some breaking up of those content pieces, like I talked about the content chunks. So we have like one chunk here, and then we have another chunk down here, and it's broken up. That's me, I'm the speaker. So we can kind of see how we like map out a page that makes it like, here are all the different sections for all the different pieces of content. And then we get to the bottom, again, a little bit more about like York and Page Cloud. And at the very bottom, we have our form that again reinforces that CTA to sign up. This isn't like a real thing. I just made this as a mock thing for this event. But in theory, at the very bottom of the page, they could sign up to be in the workshop or whatever. And then a little bit further down, we have a section for like looking for more. And this is what I talked about like internal link building. It's always good to like show people what else they can do on your website. So I've added in here a couple blog articles that we have so that people have access to other different resources from your site. So it's always good to kind of like nudge people in a different direction. This is different than a call to action, right? Like a call to action is like the actual action you want them to take of signing up. Whereas this is kind of just like nudging them further into your website to like see different things. And then just like a little footer at the bottom. So I hope you guys can kind of see a little bit of these principles in practice. If you're interested in using Page Cloud, I'm not going to go too deep into actually using the builder right now because there's a lot, but yeah, if you're interested in using Page Cloud, I'm happy to do like a one-on-one demo and show you the ropes of like how to actually use the tool.
Perfect. And I see Munzongo has a question, so go ahead.
Final question for the evening. So just wanted to ask, are there any opportunities if we do decide to connect with you directly to see different websites that Page Cloud has built?
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of our customers, like we are okay to use their website, like in our kind of like marketing materials. So there's a lot of different websites there. We actually have also like our pro directory because we have Page Cloud Pros. So then they showcase websites they've built on Page Cloud as well. Like those ones are all like super, super nice. They're custom. I mean, when I say custom, they're custom designed, like not our templates, but they're still built on Page Cloud. So it's not like they've like coded it. It's built on Page Cloud. So yeah, we have a lot of different things that we can show for sure.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank
No
you for the
problem.
presentation. It was amazing. I'm done.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So Lisa has a question as well. Is this registration page linked to a bigger events page that document other past future events, or need to make an individual page for different events? So this is just a template, but Robin, go ahead.
Yeah. So this isn't real, but yes, this is really good thinking on your part. Like this would be, you know, a landing page that maybe you came across from a upcoming events at Page Cloud page, right? Like in theory, that's probably something we would want to have. And then that would link out to, you know, what events we have in the next month. You know, like that's a really good way to do it. That's a good way to kind of promote, you know, again, that like type of internal link building on your website. But this is not real. So I can't say that we actually have that, but yeah, yes. Oh, and I can also show you guys just like really quickly, in like a website builder like Page Cloud, it's super easy to just get all of your SEO stuff really quickly. So like, you know, you can just make sure will be visible to search engines. This is a bad example of an OG image, but it's always good to upload an image, which would be like your preview image for the site. If you post it in like social media feeds, when you see a link in social media, it's not just like a raw link. It's usually like an image with a title and text. So you can do all that here. And then like your page details, for example, like this would be your page title and your description. And like, this is how it would show up in Google in theory. Again, this isn't real, but yeah.